This is one of the most famous paintings in the Louvre. The Raft of the Medusa was completed in 1819 by the French painter Théodore Géricault. He was 27 years old at the time, and his work immediately sparked a furious controversy. It was the first time that a work with such contemporary political relevance had been put on show at the Paris Salon, and it was a dramatic image that would have shocked viewers at the time. Curator Sylvain Lavessière.
Ce qu'on voit, c'est un radeau fait de poutres.
We can see the survivors of a shipwreck on a raft made of wooden beams. There are about 20 of them, and they're looking towards the horizon. Some are dead, some are dying, and some of them have had a new lease of life. And finally, perched on a barrel, a black man who is waving a piece of red and white cloth. But what are they looking at on the horizon? They have seen a sail, and it's the sail of the boat that's going to save them. We're looking at the moment when they are hanging between life and death, between hope and despair. And in a way, this is what the painting is all about, the drama of human life on a wild ocean and the hope of salvation.
Géricault's painting depicts a real shipwreck that took place in 1816 off the coast of Africa. 150 people were cast adrift on a raft with only wine and biscuits to sustain them. After 12 days at sea, only 15 survivors remained to be rescued. Murder and cannibalism had seen to the rest.
The painting had an explosive effect. But why was this? Generally, such a large, imposing piece would be painted on commission, but Géricault had not been commissioned to paint this work. It was, in fact, a kind of moment of madness on his part to undertake the painting. Secretly, he hoped that it would be bought by the new Musée du Luxembourg, which had just opened in Paris. And, unfortunately, this didn't happen, but we should remember that the painting also had a political message that didn't show the monarchy in a good light.
Géricault's painting was actually an indictment of the monarchy. This was the period of French history known as the Restoration. Napoleon I's regime, the First Empire, had fallen, and the monarchy had returned. The captain of the Medusa had been appointed by the returning monarchy for political reasons, but his lack of experience resulted in the loss of the ship. By painting this disaster, Géricault was in a sense putting the monarchy on trial. The Raft.
You're now in the middle of the Grande Galerie, in what's known as the Tribune, a space separated off by columns, where the collection of paintings by Raphael and his pupils has been hung. The Louvre has one of the finest collections of paintings by Raphael in the world. In particular, this is thanks to King François I of France, who collected the works of the Italian Renaissance master. Curator Vincent de Lieuvin.
After training
with the painter Perugino and beginning his career in Florence, Raphael moved to Rome in around 1508 at the invitation of Pope Julius II. The Pope wanted to restore the papal capital to equal the renewed power of the Church. He had St. Peter's Basilica in Rome rebuilt by the architect Bramante and asked Michelangelo to paint the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel. Meanwhile, Raphael was given the task of decorating the Pope's new apartments. This commission gave Raphael the opportunity to demonstrate that his genius was equal to Michelangelo's.
Raphael's art is distinguished by his monumental compositions based on balance and symmetry. The poses of his human figures radiate noble simplicity. There's a great naturalness to their expressions, and they embody the ideal of beauty inherited from classical antiquity.
Raphael's huge success in Rome led to an increasing number of commissions. To cope with all this work, he organized a large workshop around him. Raphael directed the design of the works by producing many drawings ready to be translated into paint by his assistants. The perfect organization of this workshop meant that Raphael was able to deliver uniformly high-quality works, and it's difficult to recognize the hands of his various assistants, even though they had genuine artistic personalities of their own. And after Raphael's premature death in 1520, this enabled them to embark on independent artistic careers.
You can find several works by his former assistants hanging next to Raphael's paintings. These artists include Giulio Romano, Perino dal Vaga, and Polidoro da Caravaggio.
In the works gathered together on these walls, you can admire the innovation of Raphael's art through the great religious paintings like St. Michael slaying the devil or François I's Holy Family. You can also see the religious works intended for private devotion, such as the Madonna with the blue diadem, along with Raphael's portraits, of which the best known are the self-portrait with a friend and the portrait of Baldassare Castiglione.
In all these paintings, Raphael develops an idea of the dignity of man, which he illustrates with a grace and serenity close to perfection.
You are now underneath the Great Pyramid in the Napoleon Hall. This has been the museum's main entrance since 1988 and is the culmination of the refurbishment project begun by President François Mitterrand, known as the Operation Grand Louvre. Rémi Rouillet, architect.
At the start of the Operation Grand Louvre, the idea was to reclaim the Richelieu wing, occupied by the Ministry of Finance, in order to extend the Louvre Museum's exhibition space.
The consequence of this choice was that the museum's centre of gravity was now in the middle of the Cours Napoleon. Faced with this new situation, the American architect Yeo Ming-pei suggested a radical solution: to create an underground entrance which would allow the three main wings of the museum to be accessed from underneath the courtyard. This single entrance would be a clear point of orientation for the museum's visitors. To guarantee enough light, it was covered with a glass roof in the shape of a pyramid.
Pei settled upon the pyramid shape, which has a certain authority in the history of architecture and also in the history of ideas. It's found in a very large number of civilizations at various periods, and this gives the pyramid a universal and timeless dimension that Pei was anxious to instill into his contemporary contribution to the Louvre Palace.
With this pyramid, Pei has
Curator Sophie Macariou.
Des jardins où coulent des ruisseaux. C'est ainsi
Many times in the Quran, paradise is likened to gardens with running streams, and this description is clearly the basis for the large mosaic panel that adorns the west portico of the great Mosque of Damascus, which was built on the orders of Caliph al-Walid between 705 and 715 AD. Painted in light colours and standing out against a gold background, we see tholoi, which are small, round temples, imaginary buildings, and little rustic villages like stacks of small, thin houses, all separated by trees. In front of them, a few little waves ruffle the surface of a placid river.
However, this essential feature of the great Mosque of Damascus lay hidden for several centuries.
The director of the Institute of Muslim Archaeology in Damascus, Victor Eustache de Loret, suspected that there were mosaics underneath a thick layer of white plaster on the west portico, but it wasn't until 1926 that he was able to put his plan into action. This was when the works undertaken by the French Institute of Damascus led to a major discovery, as the mosaics were revealed. Under the leadership of a French architect, Lucien Cavreau, 3 Syrian artists, Femi Kabani, Kamal Kalas, and Nazmi Kair, worked methodically to create a visual record of this extraordinary mosaic. With the help of a huge scaffold standing over 7 meters, or 23 feet, tall, they created an image of the mosaic tessera by tessera, in other words, cube by cube. There's a very moving photograph showing them at work, systematically reproducing the mosaic and colouring their work in watercolour. All the separate pages were then assembled side by side on a large background sheet.
These are the images you're looking at here.
7 large images and 2 small fragments in the Louvre's collections were produced as part of the project, which probably aimed to create a full, life-sized image of this large panel, as well as the decorative elements from inside the archways and part of the door at the end of the portico. One of the decorative panels from the archways is also part of the Louvre's collections. A lack of time and also money meant that the project wasn't completed. However, what does remain is this extraordinary work, the combined product of a French project and the great talent of 3 Syrian painters, which provides us with a vibrant record of the state of the mosaics when they were discovered, before all the restoration work that they have unfortunately undergone since then.
I'll show you the way to your selected location.